Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome to Self-Team Made. It's Sunday and I'm Luke, and this week we're talking about disclosing your trans status in regard to dating. And I don't really have very much experience on this topic because I started dating my girlfriend, who I'm still with, about 11 months before I actually came out, and she was very important in my coming out process because she was the person who I kind of like was able to discuss how I was feeling with. So I've never been in a situation where I've had to disclose my status as trans to an individual that I wanted to date, and like I don't think I'll be in that situation, at least for the foreseeable future. I mean, I guess no one really knows what's gonna happen like in the distant future, but like I've been with my girlfriend now for like 2.5 years, so it's kind of it's not something that I ever really think about is how I would tell a new person. But the advice that I would have, and it was still I'd still had to kind of take this in, is if you need feel the need to get to know someone better before you tell them, rather than telling them like straight off the bat, because I know that some people, if especially with like online dating as it is in this day and age, tell people before they've even met them, before they've even spoken to them, and like that's great if that's like what you need to do to be comfortable in any potential relationship unfolding, or even like a new friendship, I guess. But for me, I think that if I was ever to date anyone else, I wouldn't. I don't know if I would tell them immediately, because although it's a very important part of who I am, it's not the most important thing. And obviously, the person that you're dating has to be on board and all of that stuff. But if you want to get to know them first, or go on a few dates with them first, and like properly get to know them before you disclose anything about your trans history, then that's completely acceptable, because it's, although it is, yes, an important thing, and they do have to like have some understanding, whether that be from previous understanding or you allowing them to ask you questions or showing them where they can find information. It's not necessarily the most important thing about you. Like everything else about your personality is probably much more interesting. Like being trans is interesting, don't get me wrong, but like you have so many other qualities. So if you don't want to tell someone immediately, then that's fine. Um, and if you, but I think obviously it is important that it's a conversation that's had at some point, especially if a sexual relationship is going to develop, because it might need to be a conversation that you have before that happens, because otherwise it could end up in a very awkward situation for both parties, who, if you're not all on the same page and then you get down to things and then they're suddenly like, what? Um, like it's kind of an awful reaction, but it's it's the way that some people would react if they had no heads up, no warning that like you were a trans person and your body might be different from what they were expecting. Um, but that being said, like it's completely up to you when you feel comfortable to tell someone. I think as long as you do tell them, like when the time is right for you and them, and at the right point in your relationship, and for some people that is immediately from the beginning, and for some people that is like if the relationship starts to develop into something more serious, um, then that's when you should tell them, and you should only have to tell them as much as you feel comfortable telling them. And if they start to question you, or they don't respect you when they discover this about you, then I guess you learn something about them, and maybe they're not the person that you should be with. And that's really hard to think about, that like something that you have no control over could really dictate how a relationship would end up. And thinking about that is very scary. So I'm very grateful that I'm in a long term, I don't know, is 2.5 years long term for me? Yes, definitely long term relationship, um, with someone who is completely cool with me being trans and has been there with me every step of the way, and so really knows what's going on. Um, So yeah, as I said, I don't really have much advice other than make sure that you're comfortable telling them when you do tell them, and it doesn't have to be before you get to know them, and it doesn't have to be before they get to know you. It's just honestly down to personal preference when you disclose that status, but I think for probably like 90% of trans people, you will at some point, if your relationship is going to continue, you will need to tell them about your history, because it could be a very important factor in how your relationship proceeds. Um, that's all that I have to say about this topic. I hope you've all had a lovely week, and I will catch you guys next Sunday. Bye.